As you well know, AFSIA is Africa Solar Industry Association, and we're here to share some insight on one of the burning topics that is ongoing in the industry, and that's on the impact of solar policies and regulations. I have a distinguished guest here that he's going to be sharing his expertise with us this afternoon, and he's going to be joining us very soon. Thank you very much. We are proceeding very shortly with our guest.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. It's amazing to have you here this afternoon. We're quite honored that you could lend us your time and expertise to share with us on today's topic. And I would like to have you know that you are the very first in our Meet the Expert series, because this is our very first and maiden edition. So it's good to have you on AFSIA's page today, sharing with us your knowledge and expertise. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself to us, what you do, and where you are joining us from.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much for that opportunity. My name is, as they said, I am Musonye. I work, of course, I work for EPRA. That's the first my first employer, but I also work for Strathmore in the Strathmore Energy Research Center and the UNESCO chair for Strathmore, where I do a number of things. Here I teach, I do consultancy for different projects in Strathmore. There's one we're doing in Rwanda, actually, which we call Kawisafi. We are training women in Rwanda on issues to do with the, solar PV systems. Then in EPR, I'm the Deputy Director for Energy Efficiency and Conservation. There we deal with energy efficiency issues, but in the same directorate, we deal with solar PV systems. When I joined EPRA, I was working with solar PV systems and making the policies, regulations, which we still do up to now. Next week, we are going to make renewable energy regulations, just try to boost the uptake of renewable energy in the country.
So thank you very much for introducing yourself to us. That is our distinguished guest that is going to be sharing his expertise and knowledge on the impact of solar policies and regulations in Africa. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And I'm going to be handing over to Dr. Musonye at this point in time, and I'll come back during the question and answer session.
So we are just going to look at insights on the impact of solar PV policies in Africa. I like removing the word valuable because it's not good to rate yourself as valuable. You just say insights. Then the audience can say if it was valuable or not. So I will share insights on the solar PV, and the focus, of course, would look at a number of things in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, of course. Policy and regulations, government initiatives, case studies, discussions on barriers of implementation. But I thought there were a number of questions at the end of this presentation, which is quite good, because I think I'll spend most of the time talking about the questions than even doing my own presentation. When you have a class where people are asking you many questions, you appreciate that class. It's the one you really want to deal with. So just an overview. As a teacher, unfortunately, I cannot just jump into policies. We start looking at the basics. When you were traveling at night, like 3 weeks ago, from Cape Town University, and our flight left Cape Town, reached Victoria Falls. Then from Victoria Falls, it was at night. So flying to Nairobi, and I like sitting at the window. I don't like sitting at the aisle because I'm not the kind of person to stand every time. So I was trying to look at the outside the night to see lights. Just seeing lights. When you see lights, you see life, Even when you are traveling across the ocean, where you immediately see lights, I'm close to the land. Why? It's because this light symbolizes life. It symbolizes activities. And we say it's called the illumination of economic growth. The nighttime illumination. It says that whenever there is light at night, there is economic activity. Whenever there is no light, you know that there's no economic activity. And it's one of the ways they used to map economic development in different parts of the world. So when you're crossing Europe, coming to Africa, Europe, you see lights all over. You cross to Egypt, you see lights. Come to Ethiopia, coming to Kenya, you start seeing patches. Then you reach somewhere, you find there is no light totally. That tells you there is no energy in that area. There is no energy because the quality of life is low, economic growth is low, and everything. So in Africa, we don't have that. So it brings us to why we're doing solar actually. It's because we've been having issues of access to energy. Africa, the energy access is quite low in different in the world, in Africa actually. But in the world, you could see these statistics. According to World Bank report in 2020, they were saying 733 million people in the world lack access to electricity. But access means different things, of course. You know, that's another debate for another day. But out of this 733, 600 million is from Africa. Not only Africa, sub-Sahara Africa. So we take, let's say 50, and this accounts for 53% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa. So out of 733 million people in the world who don't have electricity, 600 million come from Africa. That should help us internalize where the problem is. This pie chart here shows this red is the other guys in the world. You have put all the Asia, South America, Europe, Oceania, North America, all those countries. Yeah. But Africa now, the rest of us here, we don't have electricity in the world. So if you collect the people who don't have electricity in the world, this percentage will be from Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. This is from the rest of the world. And you can see this is quite disproportionate. And that's why in Africa, we need to think about solar PV systems. It's important. We look at that. But then the thing is, solar PV systems is one of the best ways of assisting with energy access in these areas that are hard to access, because they are the economics that dictate that. We can do home systems, we can do mini grids, you can do microgrids, you can do all those kind of things, you can do hybrids. But then the problem is there are many people who can connect those two things. Like you can connect solar and the wires, the panel, to get electricity. Quite straightforward. Anyone can do it. We used to do it in the village a long time ago. A broken panel of PV, you put there some wires and you run your radio and things. So that's not a problem. That has been sorted out. But the problem is, how do you get to ensure that these 600 million people benefit from the solar, the advancement of solar technology? There are many ways to it. Man, machine, money. Man, machine, money. Human resource, that's human capital, technology, then finances. So these three things are the ones now where policy has to come in to ensure that they have been improvement, so that we can remove these 600 million people from this problem. So if you want to deal with man, money, machines, that's a basic mnemonic we're using in a primary school, elementary school for development. You will have to look at three things. These things are what you call market outcomes. So solar PV system or solar PV industry has desired market outcomes. These desired market outcomes are outcome 1, outcome 2, outcome 3. We want to have enough money to have solar in place. We want to have enough safety to accept solar. We need to have enough human beings or enough educated people to deal with solar. We need to have good or a seamless supply chain in the market to access solar. So if you're talking about policy and policy goals, they are having market outcomes. And sometimes you may not treat these outcomes at the same time using one instrument, one policy. So you could have a policy to deal with the competitiveness, ensuring that there is a good prices in solar. Then security of supply, you make sure that the supply chain is quite okay. Then sustainability, you ensure that when we're having a disposal end of life, we don't have a problem. Then safety, you make sure that that solar, that DC power, which is quite dangerous, does not electrocute the users. Those are policy goals. But we can see, like most of the times when people talk about policy, they think about just incentives. People think about money all the time. Money. But this policy can be either have a political solution or non-fiscal solution. Fiscal solution is about money. Non-fiscal could be, as we're calling here, I train you on solar PV systems, then you pick. And that's what we're doing in Rwanda with Kawisafi. So the women in Rwanda, we call them women actually. In Kenya, you say you call women, people feel offended. We can talk of ladies. The ladies in Rwanda, we're training them to become good solar PV system experts. We're not giving them any money. So it will become easy for them to install quality products. And that's what we are looking forward to. So that's a non-fiscal policy instrument. And policy instrument not necessarily come from government, they come from NGOs and everything. Any person can come with a policy instrument to assist, as long as it doesn't contravene the laws of the country or the constitution of the country. You can have some policy instruments which assist you to work towards that. So we say the other policy instruments like acts of parliament, bylaws, international agreements, which have both fiscal and non-fiscal interventions. So please, when you think about policy, don't think about these guys should give us money. No, policy is not all about money. As you can see, a big junk is about money, but then that should be the last point. It's not a silver bullet. When you throw money, they're saying you're throwing good money at bad decisions or bad problems. So that's what we're going to do. So, of course, African countries have been implementing these, some of these policies. Some of them are fiscal, as I said, others are non-fiscal. I seem to have encroached into someone's property here. It's in Strathmore, but they want to use the background. Please don't be distracted. I'll be done by the time they'll be giving food there. I think there are events going on here. So these instruments are a number of them. There is FIT, which is quite common. Of course, there's net metering. There is VAT exemptions. Then there are these project-specific fiscal incentives. And this was in Kenya, like turnkey projects. Then there are licensing requirements for market players. Now, these requirements, like the last one, this is non-fiscal policy. It's not a fiscal one. So these interventions are different at different countries, and they face different challenges, and there are different stages. Why? Is because in Africa, as opposed to Europe, where European Union has a number of, they have both a monetary union, fiscal unions, and legal union or political union. We don't have that union in Africa. So you'll find most of each country has its disparate from the word separate, disparate policy instruments in place, which try to work. But the thing is, of course, they're supposed to meet the unique needs of the country. As you can see, I'll try to make I'll just try to make a brief summary here. And these are just select countries. There are many. This is just some of them. In Africa, we have like Mauritius, we have FIT, we have auctions. Auctions are what we call competitive bidding. We have net metering. Then we have tax incentives. We are incentivizing people in a number of ways. Some can be excess duty exemption. Others could be income tax exemption. I know there are countries that give income tax exemptions. Others just give import duty exemptions. Others give VAT exemptions and all that. So there's some countries which have that. But each country of the ones I've selected, and most of the countries I was looking at actually have FIT policies. Countries like South Africa, I think they moved from FIT. They have gone up to auctions now. South Africa and Egypt were amongst the first ones to start picking on these. And you want to see if they have been useful. Of course, I'm not looking at all the countries, but just picking at some of them. Like in Kenya, I have not come with specific figures, but in Kenya, introduction of FIT and introduction of licensing requirements in 2012 has assisted the country to grow exponentially in uptake of solar PV systems. The Kenyan laws came in to deal with the issue of quality. Before the licensing requirements came in, there was a poor quality of work being done. There were problems. People were installing solar PV systems, more they're not working. The batteries have died. So the laws came in and started licensing companies and individuals doing that work, and it became good. Why? Because the quality of products went up, the trust in the products went up. Now the confidence went high. So the regulations now we assisted in confidence building of the uptake of solar PV systems in the country. Now let's look at it. South Africa and Egypt started FIT a long time ago, many years ago. I think it should be 2006, 2005, around there. And we can see in terms of the context of countries, the capacity in megawatts, they are also they're in the leading on the leading edge. the only problem is if we add this total capacity compared with China, we look like a giant. China looks like a giant because they have very big capacity when you compare to Kenya or to Africa. Yet Africa is at the equator, so the sun hours are a bit higher compared with the countries at the other side, the polar region. But this is just an outlook, and this is for 2022, I think. Yeah, 2022, where we have different countries with the different capacity for solar PV systems. So, of course, I've already talked about FIT and transitioning South Africa and Egypt. Then, of course, some countries have been have problems with implementing the net metering. I will not want to say problems because I work for EPRA, and EPRA is a regulator and I'm part of the government. So what happens is net metering in Kenya is still going on. I think the regulations have been forwarded to the CS for gazetting. We'll wait for that. But then there is the problem of fixing the minimum. Like the Kenyan net metering don't have a fixed minimum. They say anyone can fix. But then when you look at the mathematics, you'll find that it's quite expensive for a small scale person to fix on the grid. But Zimbabwe has a minimum, South Africa has a minimum, Namibia has a minimum. You can see on the screen. So there is only one problem we have with incentivization schemes, which are part of the policies. These schemes do not have a sell by date, and it's something I've been telling people that whenever we say we want to exempt products like solar PV products, please let's have a number. Let's say we need to exempt these products from this date, this date. We are confident by this date it will have achieved market maturity. Then from this date, we are going to wean off and go to the normal market to start competing with other technologies. But then some of them still don't have a sell by date. Then it distorts the market. That's the problem. So we have market distortion where after like 5 years, imagine 5 years of exempting this thing, then you start thinking this is the normal price. So you don't have any interior or you don't have any intrinsic motivation to try to improve the quality of the products because you know that they are cheap. When in the real sense, probably it's because they have been zero rated. Zero rating is not normal. It's the exemption. So once they're exempted, they should have a sell by date, which say by this date, we will remove these taxes from this problem, or we remove the taxes from the PV products so that at some stage, they will become mature. I've said thank you, but I've not mentioned something else about also the incentives. Of course, like in Kenya, we have incentivization schemes, but the problem we are facing right now is, of course, governments have income priorities. So like during COVID, the exemptions were removed because the treasury had other purposes, what you wanted to do. So that those are some of the problems you meet. Others is because, of course, misuse. And it's in most countries. I saw that in Ghana too. That when you have some of the importation laws and exemptions, the customs people cannot differentiate between a battery for solar, a battery for the car, the cables, UV resistant cables, the normal cables. So it becomes some sort of a mixed problem that people are bringing in the normal cables are asking for exemptions when the cables are not normal, the UV resistant cables, and they're not even meant for solar. So those are some of the problems we meet. I think I've been talking quite a lot. So what I'll do, maybe I'll go back to you.
Thank you very much for all these insights that you have shared with us on the policies and regulations that different countries have in place. I think this type of policies, both the fiscal and the non-fiscal, what is allowing, the drive and uptake of solar in Africa. One of the things that we're going to start now is we're going to go into question and answer. We have quite a number of questions that at the point of registration, quite a number of people had shared questions. And we also have a few questions here as well that has come up during this session. So one of these questions that, I have here, someone here, interestingly, is also joining from South Korea. The person works in the Seoul National University. So, yeah. All right. So I'm seeing quite a number of questions. So the first one here that I'll take that from here on Zoom, says that, do we have a timeline estimation on when net metering might be approved in Kenya? One of the reasons why I asked this is because since that's your base, you might be able to share, some insights on that.
Fine. No timeline, because what you do when you're making a regulation is in different stages. There's the stage where you associate or where you involve the stakeholders. There's a stage where EPRA writes the regulation itself. There's a stage where it gets forwarded to the CS. Now you tell the CS, please send it to the AG for gazetting. So we reach that stage. EPRA has forwarded to the CS. So the CS will forward it to the first parliament, actually, parliamentary group for energy. They discuss a bit. Then they send it to the AG for gazetting. Sometimes it takes time. I know I sent some regulations there 2 years ago and they have not been gazetted. I'm still following up. So we do hope, because of the urgency of the solar PV industry in the country, that will be fast-tracked. But we're planning to go there, of course, to the CS to make presentation for the regulations. Then you can now try to fast-track them with the AG's office. But we don't have a definite timeline. If it's within our hands in EPRA, I would give you a definite timeline. But for us, we are done with it. So we have sent everything to the CS for gazetting.
All right. That's good to know. So I do hope that you have that answer that you were asking for. Like Dr. just mentioned, there's no exact timeline just yet. The request has been made and they're waiting for a feedback from the parliament. So this other question that also came up at the point of registration, the question goes this way, that could Dr. Fenwick delve into specific case studies that illustrate the effectiveness of solar policies? I quite like this one.
Oh, yes, when I was making the slides, I'd read that question. So that's why I've shown South Africa and Egypt on being the leading figures in the country, in the continent, for solar PV systems. And this is an attestation actually to them as being the first countries that adopted FIT many years ago. And FIT, I know some of you are giving those preferential tariffs to solar PV systems to connect to the grid. Then you also guarantee them they're going to check their power. So Egypt and South Africa are the case studies, very good examples of how that improves. Kenya too. Kenya's between 2012 and now has had an increase, actually exponential, so to speak. I don't like using that word, but I'll use it for the first time. Solar PV has really, it has grown when you're just seeing this way. There's a lot of increase in C&I, that's commercial and industrial energy, and then increase in mini grids, like Garissa Solar. So we have countries that once you come in to intervene in the market and try to bring in that tool, be it fiscal incentives, be it non-fiscal incentives, there are results. The problem is, however, you cannot really try to link the exemptions, tax exemptions, to growth. So they are complicated economic growth models, but it's not very easy to say that it has grown because of just the tax exemption. But for licensing in Kenya, I can be pretty sure of that. We improve the quality of solar PV system because of licensing people, and we license them after testing them. We test you, we give you practicals. After we've done that, we ensure you are a very good person who can do that work. And then we send you the films and tell you, please go there.
Oh, thank you very much for that. Another question here that we have is that are there specific regulations that are supporting the interaction of hydroelectric energy storage and intermittent renewables like solar and wind?
Well, there you don't need a regulation. What you need should be standards. When you're talking about technology in itself, technology regulations don't deal with the hard stuff of technology. The hard stuff of technology is dealt with either with the codes, that's the grid code, or the standard. So we talk about the grid code. So the grid code assists in just depicting or defining what's supposed to be as the energy output. For example, we would talk about issues like the frequency, the voltage, and everything. So those things are already there in terms of the grid code. We have the distribution grid code and the transmission grid code, which is supposed to be followed to the latter. It's a code because it's compulsory. So when you are doing your power plant and you want to apply for the generation license and you have this distribution license, then you have to meet the requirements of the code. You cannot generate power at and distribute at 500 volts. No, we'll tell you no, that's not what is standard. The standard. So that exists. What you need are the good people to do good job when they are doing the integration of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. There's one other question here that just came up as well. It says here that, do we have any idea on what the minimum capacity will be for FIT in Kenya?
The capacities are different based on different technologies, but that was in 2012. So that has to 2012. As the 2012 FIT, it has never been changed. Why? Is because we are planning to go to auctions. So that's going to change differently. I don't have the numbers here, but I know they're different for different technologies. And it's not minimum capacity; it's maximum capacity.
Okay.
We have maximum capacity for this, maximum capacity for this. But for the specific numbers, we are going to auctions, and when you're dealing with auctions, we'll be saying we want power of this capacity in this area. So someone has to come and try to do the installation. Then you bid competitively, then you pay. For net metering, we don't have also minimum capacity. The minimum capacity for net metering is cost. The cost is prohibited because one, we want you to buy your own connectors and everything. The safety, the prosumer will do it, not the grid. So you will see if it makes sense. Then at the same time, you are supplying the grid, you are getting back 60% of what you supply the grid. So you see all that, it will be prohibitive. Only, yes, I told you I'm at someone's place. So when you hear noise at the background, please don't don't get scared. It's not a bomb. So what I'm saying is it is cost prohibitive. That you can't just try to connect anything to the grid at that time as in terms of net metering. Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Doctor, and for reassuring us that all is well.
No, I'm safe. I'm very safe. Actually, food there. So the way I'm hungry, so I'll go and eat there. Get crushed.
Thank you. So
yes.
Our next question here says that, what can you share specifically about commercial and industrial level policies?
Oh, the specifics. You know, that's a. As I told you, I'm from discussing the green hydrogen in Africa policy issues just 1 hour ago, and I was saying that when you ask me a question about policy, you are supposed to be very specific. What specific policy do you want to? Do you want a policy to deal with the safety? Do you want a policy to deal with the issues of contracts or what? But there is one thing in terms of C&I, the C&I in Kenya, when they started, we told them, you guys, you are supposed to register with us when you're doing C&I. You should share with us your contract. They refused and told us, no, you government, we don't have anything to do with you. Then after 1 year, they started coming with contract problems. I don't know, the buyer has refused to buy, the owner wants to refuse, the buyer, the owner is being told to remove his panels and go away. I don't know, the buyer wants to leave it, or those kind of. So we told them, you see, that's why we wanted to come in, because we're neutral parties and we are in a way experts in these things. We know how to do contracts and contractual issues. So if we'd have come in, we would have assisted you to really try to see if these things make sense to both parties. We can look at the contract and know the contract has loopholes. And most of the times, the buyer in C&I is not an expert in energy. That's the problem. So the seller is an expert, and there's what you call information asymmetry. So the regulator, whichever country, has to come in to assist balance that asymmetry, so that you make sure that this buyer is not being disadvantaged by the seller, who knows about the capacity factor, he knows about all those kind of things, sun hours, all those kind of stuff. But this guy doesn't know. So in C&I, and this should be the future trend, is that there should be someone assisting especially the buyer, to look at the model to try to help him understand. But see, people like doing things on their own, and if human beings are very, in a way, if human beings are trustworthy, yeah, people can be depended on, then you don't need to look at the contract. But because some people always want to take advantage of others, you get that problem of contract or contractual issues. The number two in C&I, and that's going to pass, by the way, there's the issue of defection.
Okay.
Grid defection. Yeah, people have been defected from the grid. The problem is, I'm a very big consumer. Let's say the mines in South Africa, for example, you're a big consumer. Then you say, you apply for power from the utility and say, capacity, that's power capacities, be 200 megawatt.
Okay.
There are those people with very big motors, this motor that takes like a 1 megawatt motor. So you see, so the utility comes up with a plan. It buys power, it enters into contracts for 10 years because you have asked for that power. Then the following day, someone defects, and the utility has made a commitment somewhere else. So what is coming, and is the trend that's going to be picked very soon in policy, will be grid defection fee. You want to defect, you pay, because you had committed the utility to enter into an agreement of pay or take.
That's
yes.
interesting. That's interesting.
Yes.
A grid defection fee. Wow.
Yes.
I reckon that the implementation of that is what would be willing to see.
Yes. So actually, so and you see the time, like for example, let's say you are fully on solar. There's some time you want to go off. Grid is supposed to have power to supply that power, actually, the same power. So those are the disadvantages you are looking for, because this grid is buying that power from somewhere. It has to commit. The grid is a conveyor. It's like a shopkeeper. So the shopkeeper, ask the shopkeeper to give you 100 bags of maize. Then I will be consuming this in the next 1 year. So the shopkeeper buys and put the maize, 100 bags of maize here. Then tomorrow, no, I don't want your maize anymore. I'm quite okay. It's the same way when you're working somewhere. They tell you when you want to leave your employer, you give a 3-month notice, or you pay money in lieu of that salary. So the same principle, actually. I know it sounds very outlandish, but the same principle. Maybe I'm sitting as someone who sits both. I see both sides, and that's the way. That's the problem people will be having, even in terms of net metering. I think that's why the grid does not give you back 100%. They want 60% that they pick in, all those kind of things. So that's where policy will be moving. The person who asked question about C&I, and you better be prepared if you want to argue on policy front, by knowing that what I'm telling you, that thing is going to come at some stage in the future, and it will have a ramifications actually on C&I, unless the commercial person has season, of course, standby power and all those kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that extensive explanation on that. And yes, we're hoping to see that implementation of that is going to help. Thank you. So it brings me to one question from the chat, the Q&A here on Zoom. It says that, will the capacity for PPA licenses be lowered to 500 kilowatts P solar systems in Kenya? Quite a number of questions are coming from Kenya, though. So this would increase difficulty in carrying smaller projects across the line to financial close. I'm not quite clear about this, but I do hope that you understand what this person is saying.
But yes, the person who asking the question is against being licensed to this work. He doesn't want to operate or apply for any license to operate 500 kilowatts peak. One is no, I'm not sure it's going to go down. That I can't answer quite conclusively. But number two, when you say also the financial close, I don't think that's practical. From where I'm sitting, you get that license within 1 or 2 months, I think. That's how you get a generation license. Should be 60 days, if not 30. I'm not very sure. But then number two is the question is, why do we license? And that's what I teach in energy policy. No one licenses you because he wants to see you coming to his office to look for a license. No. If that question comes from Kenya, you could have heard about the Embakasi blast, LPG. It's a very good case study of why people need to be licensed. That guy was not licensed, so he came up, did his own stuff, There was a blast in Kenya from LPG plant. It's unfortunately it has gone with some people have been suspended actually. So you get licensed because of the safety of the people you are trying to serve. It's even nothing about the person who's issuing the license or about yourself, but the government and governments all over the world are always there to try to ensure that the kind of work you're doing is safe. It doesn't harm anyone, number one. Then number two, for planning purposes, you license someone so that he can be giving you data on his business or his project. So all of our licenses actually are supposed to apply to data. Data is very good for planning purposes because it assists you in ensuring security of supply. So when you are talking about even the same issue you're talking about, you want incentives. If you don't have that data, which numbers do you use to argue your point to the treasury? You must use numbers and say, yes, we've been having these schemes for the last 5 years, and this is the benefit that we have achieved. This is how far we have gone, and we want more from that. So it's mostly for data collection, for safety of the people we are trying to supply. Then next, for the planning purposes, just try to ensure what you call security of supply. Actually, those are some of the tenets of policy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for breaking that down so excellently. So that means that policies in place because of security, and it's very important actually. So one other question that came during the registration is this. It says that how do solar policies and regulations contribute to the continent's sustainable energy development economically and socially?
Okay, fine. How do they actually? That's quite academic.
Yes.
solar and economic development. Of course, a number of things. Access to energy gives you that you get to do your stuff. That's one thing you can. Let's say you're a farmer, you can cool your produce. You can do welding, which is called a PUE, productive use of renewable energy. So these policies assist in increase in access to energy. That's the first thing. Increase to access in energy spurs economic development. Economists still are slugging about that, but increase access to energy spurs economic development. So one is also, of course, it increases employment. We have thousands of people been employed in solar industry in this country right now because of our regulations. People are getting jobs. We are weeding out quacks so that if you're not a quality person, you will not get a license and never work in that field, and you will not you're not going to lock the industry by doing a bad job. So the problem, and that's what I've always told people, is that we do not really or fully economically benefit from solar PV system because we are not a continent. We would actually do better or try to improve if we were now manufacturing the products here in this country. I'm sure the economic improvement would have been double. In Kenya, we have, of course, like Solink, they manufacture here, but there's far spread in between. Most of the solar PV panels we use, we import them from China. So you find people are employed in this industry and do get more money from there. Then when we do install in the country, you find now people are supposed to operate it a few. There are not many. So the only time you get maybe good employment during supply chain, then during installation, but during operation, remaining 2 people and that's it. That's the problem. So we need to really see to it that we can try to bring in the manufacturing into the country, into the continent, that will assist to spur economic growth and sustainability. Now, sustainability, of course, has a number of perspectives: social sustainability, economic sustainability, and mental sustainability. These ones are really assisting a lot because the more solar you have, of course, the less you depend on there are those countries that are really using thermal and coal power plants. So if you're more solar, you will try to shave off the coal. You may not compare the two, of course, on pound for pound, because one is base load and one is non-dispatchable, but it assists in a way to try to win the country off using the thermal power plants, which now assists in economic, not actually environmental sustainability. Social sustainability, we are trying to really come up with what's called social mobility, trying just to move people from the lower card of poverty going up by trying to involve people in energy generation industry working in those geothermal plants, but now solar PV industry can attract many people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Musonye, and thank you for all of the insight that you have shared this afternoon. For today's very first edition, we have very quickly run short of time. It just seemed as if the session went by very quickly, and I believe that it's because of all of the insights that you have shared. Thank you so much for your time. And for everyone that has joined today's session, we do extend our we say thank you very much for your time as well. We would not be able to cover all the questions that you've asked, both on the live session and the questions that was sent ahead, but all of these questions will be answered as part of the presentation slides that we're going to be sharing back with you. So the questions that you've asked, the ones that we've not answered on this live session, we'll answer them, and the slides will be shared with you after the session. I do hope that we were able to shed more light on the impact of solar policies and regulations in Africa. And, you'll be looking forward to our very next session in our Meet the Expert series. For our very first edition, we'd like to say thank you to Dr. Musonye from Kenya. Thank you for the excellent job that you're doing in Kenya, both as a consultant and also as a lecturer. Thank you very much for your time, sir. We appreciate it in AFSIA, and also all our audience that is from across the continent and outside the continent as well. So at this point in time, we would like to say thank you and to say goodbye. Thank you very much for joining. Bye.